Good morning, everyone, and welcome inside OUA Today. I'm Marshall Ferguson. As always, I will be hosting today's proceedings, and I would also like you to know that Scott Hasty will be late because the weather here in Hamilton all of a sudden is freezing cold and raining and just awful compared to 2 days ago, Amanda.
Yeah, the drive down here was not good, but
the drive?
Scott, I can just picture him just like running.
See, this is, all three of us use three different ways
to get here.
I bike in, Scott takes the bus, and you drive in.
Every time it rains like this, I think of that Mythbusters where they're like, you'll actually get more wet if you run, but you're always like, I'm running.
Was that a thing? Was that an episode of Mythbusters?
Yeah.
I was never a big Mythbusters guy, but I respect what they do.
It's like the next step of Popular Mechanics for kids.
That's
when
very
you're
true.
Growing up.
I can't believe I used to buy that magazine.
You can't? It was awesome.
I know, but like when you're a kid it's awesome, but looking back at it you're like, really?
It was also awesome to be on Uh-oh, and be one of those kids who's like, woo!
Oh yeah,
double fist pumping,
the green slime. That's like Sports Nation that's on ESPN. That's what that show was for kids. Thank you everybody for joining us here on CFMU 93.3. Thank you also for following along on iTunes. That was pretty awesome. Last week we had I think 131 downloads in our first week of being on iTunes, so we appreciate it.
And it wasn't just Marsh and I. Listening back to see how we can
improve.
I don't
have that many family members, unfortunately. I'm not like Corey Bellamore from the Windsor Lancers Track and Field. I don't have that many family members in order to download that much. So, cool. I know that was you guys out there supporting the cause. So we really do appreciate that. Helps spread the word a little bit. Don't forget to, subscribe, rate, and review. If you think we suck, give us 1 star. If you think we're awesome, give us 5 stars. We don't care. We just want reviews. We just want to know what you think so that we can help improve the show as we move towards the fall OUA season. How to listen, go to tunein.com, search CFMU 93.3. I already tweeted out the link. Video podcast always goes up. Usually, I have it up by Tuesday or Wednesday. This past week was a little bit late because we were dealing with all the iTunes stuff, but that's okay. Now we're in a rhythm. We're good to go. Just like a good team, we figured it out. Ready to move on. And Scott Hasty is in the building. Whee! He has made his way in. Scott, I apologize for the weather. That's completely my fault.
Well, okay, so I was like, I just got my car back yesterday.
You're like, okay, I'll take the 6 down to the 419 and then
I will take the bus because I don't need to take my car to campus. And then all the buses were delayed. It said so I was like, okay, crap. I gotta take my car because I'm not walking.
Yeah.
And then, there's a million cars trying to get in for the exams.
There's so many cars.
And every single
why is there so many cars
parking lot except the stadium one is full.
Yeah.
And I saw
I was like, oh wow, okay. So.
And I saw someone taking a cab to their exam today.
Yeah, there were a lot of cabs.
What?
It's raining.
Who takes a cab to an exam?
There are a lot.
Someone who doesn't have Wellingtons.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, we're glad to have you here, Scott. How to reach out at OUA Today, at Marsh2Fergs, at Walden Amanda, at Scott1Hasty. Coming up over the next, again, 55 minutes. It always seems to be like that. We will be talking about the CIS East-West rosters, Ryerson curling, Guelph men's hockey, Canada basketball. What role does the CIS play in that development that's going on in Canada right now? It's very exciting. Western women's hockey, the Terminator, bobbleheads, tweets of the week, and Periscope. Do you guys know what Periscope is?
No.
Yes, I do. I don't have. I have a BlackBerry, so I don't use it. But
say hello to Periscope. Then,
people are joining it. What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Why not? Why not? It's a radio show. It's fun.
Yeah.
Periscope is basically this app that I found out about last week from Jay and Dan actually, because they use it down in California, where they broadcast their entire Fox Sports Live show through Periscope. Hello from Australia. So what they do, people are just messaging saying hi from Australia. What they people basically do.
Weird.
Yeah, I know, weird, right? Like, just reaching everywhere. If you want to follow us on iTunes, do it now. But basically, anybody can broadcast it. It's kind of like the Players Tribune of random Twitter people who you can just send out your own message anytime that you want, and you're able to broadcast your own kind of message. So, we are on Periscope.
So they use this a bit more in sports now. Sports is really using it a lot.
I watched.
How long? Like July until someone's using it in a locker room inappropriately or something like that?
100%.
Oh yeah.
And
time's ticking, man.
The thing I thought about as soon as it was like, oh, by the way, anybody can broadcast, anybody can this or that. You do it from your own phone. I'm like, how many crimes are going to be caught on Periscope? Because it automatically captures, right?
If you've seen Furious 7, then maybe this is the eye. God's eye, then, you know?
I haven't seen it.
In my head, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, you gotta watch it.
I've heard the song.
Hello.
See you again.
We'll have to check that out. Yes, Periscope will revolutionize our concept of television, says Greg Serafini. I kind of
Did he
Thanks,
comment
Greg.
that?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You can write. There's a chat.
this is bizarre.
I know.
Like,
It's weird
screen
that
our
people
calls
are
now.
doing it.
I know.
There's probably more people watching on Periscope than listening on the actual radio.
But anyways, I think it's kind of, I became strangely addicted the last couple of days because like late at night I would come home from my job and just be like, before I pass out, I'd be like, oh, I wonder what, like I'll check out Jay and Dan and go flip on there. I would go check it out for a minute, and what Jay and Dan do is they read their highlight packs and they're like live on camera, and then the second that they're done reading their highlight packs, they'll like turn and be like, fuck Sports 1 every night, and they'll like start talking to you on Periscope. So they're kind of doing it back and forth, but I think it's interesting. I think it'll be like Snapchat where it's like the world goes crazy about it, and we don't know what's going to happen, and then eventually it like fizzles and everyone's like, why the hell did we ever do Periscope?
Yeah.
Right?
I think Periscope, there's just gonna be, there's gonna be some weird reporter that uses it in a locker room, and
Yep.
if you've been in locker rooms, there's sometimes nudity.
Yeah.
Often.
Or guys making, like apparently the Montreal Canadiens right now, when the media walks in the room, they moo.
They move.
Yeah, because they severely dislike the media right now in Montreal. So, and they're like pitting the whole us against the world, Montreal media against like they don't trust us and all that stuff. So they're just mooing when they all walk in. All the players just sit in their stalls.
Keeping
So
it classy.
I guarantee there's going to be a lot of negative side effects, but the positive side effect is that we're on
we're on
Periscope.
For the brand.
So yeah, if you guys want to join us anytime, go on Periscope. You can figure it out. It's pretty easy. The one thing I would like to request though, Periscope, if you could, make it easier for us to turn this thing sideways and be able to actually not me hold it, because that's super awkward. Anyways, jump on there so you can live experience our show. I want to get into the starting five. Amanda, you put together the starting five this week. It's a very, very good one. And I
Yeah.
think the first part of the starting five is actually really interesting.
You know what? It's interesting that it's summer. People are finishing exams, and there's still a ton going on in the OUA and a ton going on with people in the OUA
Yes.
and in sport in general.
I said that a couple of weeks ago. It's amazing when you're not actually playing a sport and worried about yourself and you're thinking about other things that you find out that there's a lot going on.
Definitely. So, first thing in the starting five, Ryerson. They are adopting curling as part of their club program come the 2015-2016 year. We know that Ryerson has been really building up speed in a lot of sports franchises, and this is good to maybe compete with Laurier a little bit. I mean, they are the number one curling right now in Ontario.
Yeah.
Second.
Yeah, I would just want to say Ryerson, if they're going to be able to use Mattamy worth any good amount, I think that that'd be pretty cool to have like a major CIS championship there and try and get people out in the It's not going to be like CIS. I mean, we talked about how they had trouble filling the CIS building, but
Yeah, but could you
has
imagine if
potential,
you
though.
had the
For the men.
curling championships at Mattamy Athletic Center, like that big rink up top?
Yep.
So cool.
And you could just have people drinking because that place is licensed.
Yeah.
So you could have people coming out and watching curling and having a couple wobbly pops with their
Yeah.
friends, which is, I mean, that's part of curling. Like,
yeah.
part of the,
And we've talked about university culture, like trying to get people to games. What did
Oh,
we talk
yeah.
about last
Yeah.
week with Austin? Put the beer tent at the end or somewhere it's
yeah,
accessible.
have a
You can use-
bond spiel. It'll be great.
It has a lot of potential. I mean, probably
Yeah, it's
your
definitely a good
grandfather would go, Marsh.
Oh,
Yeah.
Gramps
Right
is
from
in.
Napanee?
You kidding me? You kidding me?
He would
He'd
make
make
it way
the
down to-
drive. He's not a big driver, but damn, he'd make the drive for that.
A bond spiel in the 6. That'd
Yeah.
be great.
I got an email as well from the University of Guelph curling program this week, which I have flagged and will respond to. But I want to thank them for actually reaching out because they sent a question in about what is the OUA sport with the highest involvement. Because he was mentioning about how Ryerson added, and it kind of grows the idea of Ryerson as a school that has more involvement in more sports and more clubs and that kind of thing, because they've been seen as kind of sectioned, being in Toronto and focusing on some smaller things.
Yeah.
But and I believe it's soccer. Pretty sure. Soccer
Yeah.
or
Is it
volleyball.
because of the short season?
I don't know if it's season related. I think it's accessibility. It's kind of like any of those conversations we have.
It's like
the-
soccer when you're a kid.
Yeah,
It's pretty
exactly.
easy to play,
Yeah.
and I bet that the cost isn't that high. Like,
Yeah.
the cost of competition. There's
Yeah.
some scholarships, but there's probably not a ton.
Yeah.
So that might be it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Anyways, thank you for the email, Guelph Curling. Go ahead, Amanda, sir.
Cool. Number 2. So if you haven't seen this yet, you have to watch it. Jonathan Petra's story, brought to us by TSN. Absolutely amazing. And if you don't have a Kleenex beside you, you need to get one when you watch this story. It's basically called The Butterfly Child on TSN. This young gentleman is from Ontario. He has EB, epidermal myelinosis bullosa. And it's a disease that basically our cells are connected by like an inner mortar, I would say. And
The
if
glue.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
glue. And if you have this disease, you don't have that glue. So anything that you touch, pretty much, like anything abrasive, it will make your skin fall off.
Yeah.
And this young man is absolutely enthused by the Senators. He loves hockey. He loves sports, but for him, he'll never really be able to play because he can't play contact sport. Him and his mom just fighting this disease together, and he's absolutely optimistic, absolutely inspirational, and we love him.
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, no, he's great. They did a feature on him a while back with Brent Wallace, just kind of, thought it was going to be like a one-time thing, like, hey, here's this kid, amazing story, struggling through this, but like so strong. And they did the story, and everyone in Canada that saw the story was like, I actually reached out to him. I contacted him and talked to him about when the story came out, because in the previous incarnation of the show, I wanted to have him on Marauder Radio because I thought it'd be cool. He wants to be a sports broadcaster. That's why he kind of did the thing with TSN. He wanted to call some of the action. So I wanted to have him on and give him some of my favorite broadcasting calls and let him read them on air in whatever way he wanted, kind of thing. Give him his demo tape live on air. So maybe we'll reach out and get in touch with him. He basically, when I talked to him before, he was close to being on, and then he wasn't feeling great, and I said, take your time, do whatever you gotta do. So, but that's a pretty amazing story, like you said.
He's super knowledgeable, so I could definitely see him doing that. So great story by him. The next step, McMaster women's rugby coach Sean Allen, absolutely incredible honor this weekend. He got honored with Rugby Canada's
male
rugby team coach of the year.
Yeah, it was, so he coaches the women's team here at McMaster, but they guess do it by women's and men's, male and female coach of the year in Canada rugby. So he is the male coach of the year despite the fact that he coaches women's rugby, but still a huge honor, obviously. Yeah,
cool. In Langford, BC, which is a big part of rugby out in BC, April 16th this last week. Number 4 on the countdown, Guelph Griffins hockey. Nick Hard signs with the AHL Flames, and the Flames are based out of Glen Falls in New York. Top affiliate with the NHL's Calgary Flames. So Nick Hard was definitely one of the major scorers this year in the league. I mean, he had 28 points in only 26 games. And this is the second year in a row that he's been Guelph's top scorer. So the Griffins are definitely going to be missing him next year. I remember D'Agostini just saying, like, you know what, I got the goal. Here we go. Hard is up and scoring for our team. So
he was
awesome.
very, very complimentary of him for sure. And also should mention Sam Bennett, Kingston Frontenac's alumni, who, as soon as the OHL season was done in Kingston, I believe got beat in the second round by former Andrew D'Agostini's team, Peterborough Petes, in the OHL playoffs. The second that he lost, he got sent up to the AHL Flames. So he played for this team, and then he got the call up for the playoffs. Last night he scored his first ever NHL goal, in the playoffs.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, which is crazy.
Yeah. And so this young gentleman, Nick Hart, is one step away from his NHL dreams. Last on the docket, number 5, Western Women's Hockey. They are opening up a couple opportunities for coaching. They want to have a full-time assistant coach. You're obviously able to apply for this. We're going to tweet out that link. You have to have a couple of really good credentials
so I can't apply?
To apply for sure, because this team is competing on the national stage. But comment from Therese Quigley. She's really happy to announce that this is coming open, as well as their current coach, Chris Higgins, is retiring. So David Barrett, who is their head coach, is now coming into that full-time position. So excited to see some change up in that coaching staff. Maybe it'll change their outcome, but great season by them this year. What kind of credentials?
Marshall, I think you should just go and be like, I will put our practices on Periscope, and he'll be like, yep, you're in.
I seriously considered the idea of sending an anti-highlight tape when I was in like my third year of university, like find the worst clips of me from birth until that point in my football career and sending it to a D3 school and just seeing if they would respond, and like send them a serious letter being like, I really want to chase my dreams.
Of D3.
Yeah. No, but like just football in general, like I want to continue the dream and just act like I was a high school kid coming out and just send them a ridiculous like blooper reel tape and just see if they would respond. Which like D3 is still good football. I'm not discrediting anything, but I'm just saying it'd be funny to see if like you would get a genuine response back and be like, hello, Mr. Ferguson. Unfortunately, due to your highlight tape, we are unable to accommodate your request.
Please never contaget us again.
Or if you would just get ignored.
They send you like a free water bottle or something.
Yeah, I just imagine that. Just like send you, you get declined from admissions. Maybe that would be how they would get rid of you as quickly as possible. Oh, we took a look at your grades and you're not eligible. So, all right. Thank you very much, Amanda, for putting that together. That was awesome. It was, I think that Jonathan Petrie story is going to, be around for a while yet. I hope that he gets a chance to go on a bit of a run as a broadcaster, because it seems like it's exactly what he wants to do once he's out of school. So, All right, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back on OUA Today on CFMU 93.3.
The road trip. It's freedom. It's exploration. It's about new experiences. And this road trip has been brought to you by Pioneer Bonus Bucks.
Nothing like a little hip on your Monday morning. Should make it easier to get through the rain and make your way into whatever job you're going to, or if you're listening to us on iTunes on the podcast. This is a good run song for you. Some ideas. Yeah. The hip are pretty good to work out with. Yeah, I like them to work
with.
Out.
Or two.
You
lift with Gordon.
Yeah, well, I think Gordon and I bench the same amount, so that might be why I enjoy listening to their music while I work out. But talk a little bit about Canada basketball. It's a conversation I wanted to have last week. Couldn't get to it. There's more clips from an interview from McMaster Athletic Director Glenn Grunwald that I couldn't get to in order to get in the show. I will clip those. We'll use them in a future conversation about this. But in the meantime, wanted to bring up some stuff. There was Wayne Parrish, who can you shout a title for me, Scott, of Wayne Parrish? Because I know
Wayne used to be the CEO and president, but he is the, I believe, CEO of Post Media, so National Post and a bunch of other media outlets. Post Media, I think, acquired the Toronto Sun.
Okay.
So he is heading up all of those things.
Yeah. Big wig when it comes to the media world, obviously.
For sure. Yeah.
And Michelle O'Keefe is the other person who's involved in these clips, who is now the new president and CEO.
Of Canada Basketball. And she was the executive director before.
Yeah.
And worked with Canada Basketball in a number of roles for ever.
Yeah, and I saw her speak at the CIS Speakers Forum at Ryerson. Amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. She's a fantastic person in basketball in Canada, and she's worked her way up and seems like she's got it headed in the right direction and has some goals and some visions for it. So both Mr. Wayne Parrish and Miss Michelle O'Keefe were on Primetime Sports with Bob McCown on Sportsnet 590 The Fan about a week and a half ago, and I listened to the full interview, and they started to go into some CIS talk, so it applies directly to us. And I'm going to play a couple of clips. I apologize, some of these clips are like a minute 15 long kind of thing, but the conversation that they're having is very pertinent to the idea of development of basketball in Canada, not only on our side of things, but also CIS and beyond, and heading into the international competitions that are coming up this summer, which I know Scott is going to be closely watching, the Pan Am Games and the Olympic qualifiers. So here's the first clip from that interview on the Fan 590. There we go.
The downside for me is, and I'm interested in your perspective on this, that we may be at a point where if you have a talented young basketball player, you're not staying in Canada. You're going to Findlay Prep or one of those schools in the U.S., for your last couple of years of high school or whatever it is, to prepare yourself, but also to get noticed as you pursue a college education for a year and ultimately a professional contract. Is this worrisome to you, and how does Canada basketball fix this if it's needs to be fixed?
Yeah, without getting too technical, we're always concerned about the daily training environment. As you said, how do you get prepared for the NBA or 1 year of college and then off to the NBA? And because our country is so big and everybody's so spread out, that's been a real challenge for us. And I think that's why the Findlay Preps and the Huntington Preps has been such an attractive thing for our athletes. And I don't blame them one bit, because we haven't built that here.
Thoughts, comments, concerns on the first clip there? Because I know it touches a bit on development inside the country, wanting to keep people domestic. And we were just at the BioSteel All-Canadian game where we got to see the best players from in and around Canada, many of whom they pulled from the Orangeville Institute, but maybe they weren't able to get as many of the prep guys back from the States in time to come back for the game.
I don't know for sure if there were guys that they couldn't get or anything like that. It seemed like there's buy-in across the board.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it was
hard not to agree there, where it's like, yeah, they're going to the best spot where they can get trained, and we don't have that here yet. And I mean, it didn't say if they were considering, if Canada basketball is considering it or not, but it's important. But McCown brings up a good point, I think, like in that he talks about guys are going down south, and then does that concern you? Doesn't sound like it does, but if our Canadians are still, if Canadian athletes are still getting the best possible training that they can get, and then they're committing to our programs on the national level and competing at the national level, I think that's a good step. We want our guys to compete with us, and we want them to train in the best possible environment. Should that be in Canada? Maybe. It's getting there. Like Athlete Institute in Orangeville, you just mentioned it. Yeah. It's getting a very real and great reputation. So
yeah, and again, we always talk about, Nipissing basketball. Stuff has to start somewhere. Well, that Orangeville Institute is more than started. Like it's got the ball rolling on what could create a local development. If say you get a training center in downtown Toronto somewhere, right?
And we should mention too, because
to go along with Orangeville,
Grunwald did Rise out in Brantford, close to us. I haven't checked that out yet, but I know that some of the athletes from McMaster basketball and definitely other OUA schools, I just don't know for sure, but they will be playing at this place through the summer.
Is that where the
it's like a pickup
NBL
thing.
Plays out of?
And North of the Border Basketball League or something.
NBVL or whatever.
Yeah. But they want to do a prep type academy thing. So if the question is, are you concerned about it? I mean, sure, but it's happening. Like there's a demand for it, I guess, because there's 2 centers now. The other problem is, we're such a big country, so there's 2 in Ontario.
Geography is a major issue.
But where do we put other ones?
Like Trey Michael Lyles.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where is he from?
Well, technically I think he's from Regina.
Yeah.
But he spent most of his time down south anyways.
Yeah, but like, if you're, even at the most basic levels, if you see a kid like that and you're like, grade 6, let's get him in here and let's start to, well, we don't have that because how many quality kids he's going to play against in Regina?
And I should bring up too, the NIDA Academy. I can't remember what NIDA stood for, but it was a largely women's Canadian basketball initiative that took a bunch of players, put them in program through Westdale and at Mac.
Yeah.
Like it ended a few years ago, but they spent all their time like training basketball with Canada basketball people, and Natalie Ashunwa went through that, and she was like the number 2 pick or something like that.
Yeah.
Or maybe I'm going too high, but in the WNBA, other players, like a bunch of players who are on the senior women's national team went through this National Elite Development Academy. That's what it's called. So when we do it, it works.
Yeah, I think
it's a money thing.
Michelle is going to touch on it. Is a money thing, and we'll get to that in a second too. But Michelle O'Keefe, the new president and CEO of Canada Basketball, I think touches on that in a couple clips. But let's play the next one here from that interview.
Can Basketball Canada have a significant role in that?
I think our role is to make sure they find the environment that's best for them. Make sure they ask the questions on what's the living conditions, how are they eating, what's their schooling like. And make sure that the coaches are as technically sound as the kids need them to be, and that the athletes are training against every day make them better.
Could you see? Sorry, Kenny. Sorry. Could you see a time when Basketball Canada creates its own Finley or Huntington?
We sort of had that a few years ago with the National Elite Development Academy in Hamilton, the NIDA program. So the boys existed for 2 years, the girls for 3. On the girls' side, we had great success. 2 of the girls who graduated out of that program were on our 2012 Olympic team. On the boys' side, it's slower in coming, and I think they didn't necessarily capture all the athletes that eventually made it to the senior team.
Kelly was
That's
here
right,
for
Kelly
part
was
of
there.
one of those.
Yeah.
Kelly Olynyk
was
part of one of those.
Oh, was he?
years. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was the difference.
Well done, Scott.
Oh yeah, I actually didn't hear that clip.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I haven't let you guys hear any of this because I wanted your kind of raw reaction to it. And they talk again, Amanda, about being able to put the best eating, sleeping, training conditions, weightlifting, consistency, education, all those things. Like, you didn't play basketball, right?
No,
and you didn't play at the national level, but you understand that as a varsity athlete. And I think anybody who's a varsity athlete listening to this thinks at the end of the day, like, it's very sexy to talk about Canada, US, where you want to be, close to home, far away from home. When it comes down to it, the nuts and bolts of it is, am I going to be happy here?
Yeah.
Am I going to be successful here?
Going through the provincial and then just even high school and rep circuit, if you have centralized training, I mean, my high school team was also my rep team. Like, all those girls were in the same area.
Yeah.
So, like, to win SASA was, like, no big deal at all. And for some teams, it's like, oh my God, we're in the SASA final. Like, we were always meant to go to OFSA.
Yeah.
So have this centralized training, it works. Like Scott said, like it works.
The thing I'm most interested in is when they talk about, is it Canada Basketball's responsibility to keep these kids at home? And Michelle just kind of says, it's our job to put the best national team on the floor. Like, and we're interested in local development, and we're interested in trying to build these training facilities around. And the thing that I think about too is if they start to build some of these, and say they're Canada Basketball sponsored, if they get funding to start building it, I mean, if Prime Minister Harper wants to show up and shake everyone's hand, why not throw some money down there?
Take a picture with Anthony Bennett, Andrew Wiggins, and like tag Kyle Lowry or something like that.
Like he's Canada's hockey Prime Minister, but apparently he told Wayne Parrish he wants to be the basketball Prime Minister by the time he's done because that's what politicians do, is they latch on to whatever is successful and try and attach their name to it, right? So anyways, I would be very interested to see if they find some kind of funding, start to build more of these training centers like the Orangeville Athletes Institute. Say we get 4 or 5 of them in 4 or 5 years. They start popping up all over the place. Some are more successful than others, but they're competing with each other, which raises the overall level of competition. If you get more people into those training centers in Ontario, what happens to OUA basketball?
Yeah. Oh, there's
more
just a
people
spillover.
Stay at home.
There's a spillover.
More people stay at home, I would argue. Like, not necessarily in large quantities, but you're going to have the odd guy who's like, yeah, you know what? It's like the same thing as a stud linebacker during York's dark years, where he decides to go to York because he's like, you know what? It's close to home and I like it here. Yeah. And I want to be a part of something special.
You can't teach build. You can teach talent though. And like even the Scrub brothers are a really good example of that. I mean, he said when we first got these guys, they were so uncoordinated. But I mean, if you stuck those guys down in the States, maybe they would be at a different level. Well,
that's kind of what Dave Smart said too, is that I can give you great training here. Like if you come to Carleton or another school, you're going to get amazing training with us. And if you stay 5 years, we can help you and set you up for a pro contract in Europe, which is a reality. Like if you're an NCAA player, you're not going to go to the NBA, likely.
I don't want to get too deep into this, but do you think the Scrub brothers have changed the game in recruiting in Ontario, or is it a one-time flash in the plan? In the CIS in general, but I would say in the OUA.
Yeah. In what way?
I feel like they've changed the dynamic for students that are coming out that are highly talented across the country, where maybe I don't have to go south to develop and put myself in the right situation.
I think even the Raptors have changed that. Like
I would say it's too
the highlight
soon.
there.
Yeah, you think so?
Just depending on what they do. Like depending what happens with especially Phil. Like if someone can tune into NBA TV and they see Phil on a bench or on the court at Summer League, yes, I agree. But if that doesn't pan out, then it's like, well, he was the best chance. He was the best, like, our best shot for something to happen in the CIS. Because that's what all the media says.
Yeah, it was like Quinlan when he came out. We talked about the CFL, right? He's the
best
chance to happen.
He's the best chance.
Happened,
and if it doesn't happen,
we all went, oh.
Then you're like, our hope is gone. Yeah. And that, I mean, that's a lot of pressure on Phil for some reason. But he could deal with it. I mean, 5 and 5, I think he knows a little thing about pressure, but.
I don't think much sticks to that guy.
Yeah. He could change it. He could change it.
See if he can develop in the next way. Yeah. All right, let's get to the next clip here.
What about a program like, I know it's Carleton. They build their own dynasty. You got a guy like Phil Scrub, wins 5 titles in 5 years. He could maybe sign somewhere in the NBA. Would you guys prefer to see elite players stay here at the college level, or does that matter to you? Because Bob was hitting on guys going to prep school. What about guys when they get eligible for CIS basketball?
This is a question that we're both asked quite often, and I'm not sure that I will give you my answer, and it is, to me, it ultimately doesn't matter. I mean, that's not something that the CIS would like to hear me say. But, and if we can, and whatever we can do to facilitate the CIS creating the quality of training environment that Michelle is talking about, and then being able to attract the athletes through that environment, that would be wonderful. And we're there to help in any way that we can, but we can't provide the sheer dollars to that. We don't have the sheer dollars to do that. And from our perspective, if you think about our twin mandate as an organization, and this is true of many of the governing bodies of sport in the countries, is to field the best international teams that we can, and also to facilitate the growth of the game at the grassroots level. There's a lot of things that happen in basketball in between those that we can't wrap our arms around. You look at the mandate of USA Basketball, and theirs is not even as broad a mandate as ours. They really just handle the international teams. I mean, unless you're thinking that we can do more in that area.
No, I agree with you. I think we have a history of trying to do a lot of things, and we do them okay. Mm-hmm. But I think we have to pick fewer things and become world class at them and stop trying to be jack of all trades.
You agree with that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, I do too. Completely.
Yeah, the CIS has been, we know it's hard to make change happen. It's hard to make things happen. So
from our perspective, again, from the outside, we're not in meetings, we're not in boardrooms, but we've seen over time.
Well,
and you've talked to people who have
conversations,
been in meetings.
it's change happens very slowly. And if you say that we're going to make a commitment to something that's a very steep hill, when you're riding this wave of momentum and you're going to throw all of that at the CIS, it's a lot. It's a huge commitment. So yeah, I mean, again, let's make sure our players are in the best possible situations. If that's the CIS one day, then awesome.
Yeah.
And do what we can. And they do, I think that they kind of undersold it a bit. Like they help and hold coaching clinics that CIS coaches can go to.
It's not like they're bailing on the CIS in any way. It's just,
I think sometimes people think that, and it's like, no, I went to one of the coaching clinics and I recognized most of the coaches. Like I've seen them or heard their names or anything like that. And they were at, the ones in Ryerson and all that stuff. Like there are things that are happening. It's just a little bit behind the scenes from a meet. Like that's boring. Like, no, we help CIS coaches. They're like, we're investing in the grassroots. Whatever. Yeah. They like, I can understand that. It's just kind of boring, but yeah.
And the thing I like too that Wayne Parrish brings up there is the question of national sport governing bodies and their responsibility to develop locally versus compete internationally. Cause I think that's a crazy, offset of ideas, and it seems like it requires a different set of motives or even direction of funding to accomplish two different things, right? And that's, to me, I find that intriguing because that's kind of a dichotomy of ideas that you see some countries attack one side, like they talk about USA basketball, like, and I know USA basketball invests in grassroots as well, but a lot of Canada has been dabble instead of going, you know what? Hey, Jamal Murray, he's a freak. Maybe we should invest in trying to get him the best possible surroundings in order to create the best possible product and include this number of guys on our roster.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know on the women's side, they do lots of stuff. Like the women's side, they have like identification and evaluation camps, and like they'll be in Toronto, and there was one in Toronto like a month ago or less than that. There'll be some in Quebec. So they have a presence, like they just have a presence that it's like, if you are interested in basketball and going to the next level, Canada Basketball is a spot that you come to learn about it, which is what you need. You need someone directing traffic.
And again, going back to OUA and CIS coaches being involved in all of this stuff, like you talked about with the coaches clinics, James Darrow in University of Ottawa, he's involved right now, right, with the cadet team?
Yeah.
Right?
He got, I think that was on,
Roy Renna just coached, who is at Ryerson right now. He just coached the Nike World Hoop Summit.
I think it's like
in Portland.
I don't know how many years, at least 5.
I feel like, and
he's
again,
doing it all the time.
And again, I feel like this is part of our mandate as this radio show is like, our coaches are out there doing nationally and internationally competitive things. And I feel like that goes over
I think if it was a
CIS
hockey thing, that like, not that CIS hockey is necessarily more popular, but it's
Haley
like
Wickenheiser is a player, coach, manager, and media member.
Yeah. But you can be like, I think that if it was like whatever the equivalent would be of the Nike World Hoop Summit for hockey, whatever that would be, if it was like the whatever St. Mary's men's hockey coach that was doing it, I think it might get a little bit more pull, but it's like, oh no, it's just a CIS basketball coach.
I'm maybe like the IIHF World Junior Championship if
that'd be crazy.
If we just talked about Guelph hockey and Western hockey in the starting 5 here, if, you know, women's Western head coach who just got promoted, what was his name again there? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me, but
Dave
Chris
Barrett.
Was standing, so Dave Barrett. So say Dave Barrett gets called up and coaches the IIHF World Junior team, then OUA CIS circles are going, whoa, what is this guy doing? But again, he's probably poached within a short period of time, because if you're coaching that World Junior team with all that talent, somebody in the AHL probably wants it, or the OHL, or the this, or the that, or the, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different setup. So I think this next clip speaks a lot to what we just already talked about. But
don't you think a stronger CIS would make for better overall basketball?
By the way, Ken Reed, thank you for asking the CIS questions.
Yeah, he was doing it with Grunwald too.
It's funny. I don't understand Ken's pull.
Because he's hockey news, right?
Yeah. But I just feel like he just gets it. And it's so nice to see someone in mainstream media who understands that there's a group of people who are extremely interested in finding out these answers from important people. So shout out Ken Reid. I need to say that before we move on.
Don't you think a stronger CIS would make for better overall basketball in Canada?
Absolutely. But until the resources are there to back it and to keep those kids home, I think we're just pedaling really fast and getting nowhere.
That was the equivalent of the 5 dots when she paused for that
extended
period of time. It's like, I can't really say that we have no funding, but here we go. And then she just says it, and it's like, again, completely agree.
Yeah.
And
none of the obvious answer.
Yeah, it is. And again, I feel like we're repeating ourselves here, but we're trying to kind of drill in the point from this interview that, like, there's not a whole lot of things that it seems like Canada basketball can do to build up these local training centers for high school exceptional athletes and keep them here in Canada and make our national team better, which makes us more internationally competitive, which makes the OUA and the CIS better, until there's established funding and these places are built and the kids get in and the training is good and the coaches stay there for an extended period of time, kind of drilling it home. But
when we were talking about the difference between CIS and NCAA, like, it's just money.
Yeah.
It's just all about the money.
We don't have Werner ladders.
No, we don't. We don't.
Do we have ladders at all? Do we cut down meshes?
They do. They do. But nothing I was saying here is like from my knowledge or from a Canada basketball specific perspective. I'm not saying anything that Canada basketball is saying. Like, don't want anyone thinking that I'm speaking on behalf of them. Just saying, most of what I thought before I even started anything
we all
with
have
that
our own
organization.
perceptions, right?
Yeah,
regardless
like
of your affiliation.
Yeah, but no, I think that was an awesome interview, and it was great that Sportsnet had them on to talk about that, and then the CIS angle. I thought there was like a lot that people can kind of start to wrap their head around the landscape of like amateur sport, especially basketball. But
we got a couple more here. I'll play them out.
I'll tell you my opinion on it for what it's worth.
No, really?
Come on, McCown.
Will you, Bob?
Wait, Bob wants to let anyone know about his opinion? I don't know if anybody wants to know about it.
He doesn't get paid like $500,000 to do that or something, right?
This is kind of where they changed the direction of the conversation from internal development of basketball in Canada and the role that the CIS plays in it towards the typical question that's been going around for 10 years. Hey, Carlton, when are you leaving for the NCAA? This is where the conversation turns because Bob is from Ohio, so he has an NCAA interest where he wants to move it along, right? Also should mention, I just retweeted from the OUA Today account, the Carleton Ravens sent out a tweet of the runner who got passed, who was celebrating this past week.
The Oregon.
Yeah, the Oregon runner that was celebrating as he's running through the finish line, and the guy catches him by like 15 meters on the back stretch, and Carlton just tweeted out with, "Don't get cocky, kid." I love that.
Right, that's why the Scrub Brothers just said thanks.
Yeah, exactly.
They keep him on a level.
They got to keep the social media guy.
Carlton Twitter is awesome. But here is, speaking of Carlton Twitter, here is Bob McCown giving his opinion on them going to the NCAA possibly.
I'll tell you my opinion on it for what it's worth. I'd love to see Carlton go to the NCAA. I mean, I understand that would stick a pin in the balloon of the CIS, but they have an exceptional program with exceptional athletes, and they have a history of being very competitive against Division I schools, high-level Division I schools. Yeah. What would be better for basketball in this country than to have a Canadian school in the tournament and then ultimately in the Final Four?
Yeah.
It would be off the charts exciting.
It would. And UBC came close to making that decision 5 or 6 years ago and then backed away at the last moment. But, the CIS has a tremendous challenge. The athletic directors and the basketball coaches are all in for this concept and this approach.
Right.
But you've got to get the presidents of the schools and the senior folks that run universities in this country, helped by the government, to recognize that this is important. And until that happens, it's simply, we're not going to get there. It really does take a group of presidents. And we've had the conversation as recently with Therese as the last couple of months. Who are the presidents running universities in this country who care enough to value the development of athletes the same way they value the development of musicians or physicists or others? And that really
they are
is
few
the
and
question.
far between. I think we've had all kinds of evidence of that in the past.
First thing, I didn't realize when I first listened to this interview how much Wayne Parrish punches his microphone as he's doing the interview.
Yeah,
that's
I thought
weird.
He was
Stuff's just
putting his finger down, maybe.
He's just punching the desk. He's so fired up. Second one, Therese, that they mentioned there, Wayne Parrish talked about Therese Quigley, former director of athletics here at McMaster, now at Western, also sits on the board for the CIS basketball committee and works in various areas. We already mentioned her with the Western women's hockey coaching changes. Third thing, Scott, go.
I think it's interesting that we equated the development of CIS athletes to something about doctors.
Yes.
I just think is it important? Like, how important when we've got a pile of money? Why is putting a Canadian team in the NCAA very important? And how many? And if the argument is, well, it can inspire young people to be physically active, how many examples do they need? Like, it just seems like a.
I saw Steve Nash at the BioSteel game. I was fired up. I wanted to run 6K and drink 6 beers.
I know
crawl across.
He's cut, eh?
yeah. If you remember that story that we told a couple of weeks ago from when he retired. But yeah, no.
Yeah, I don't know. I understand his point, but I'm like, well, I get that they think it's important in securing some government money, but I don't see how this changes it.
I think the point he's trying to get at is the idea of the typical NCAA model where we think about the brand of Notre Dame, and when you go there and you become a football player at Notre Dame, there's some kind of aura around it, and the aura of that program leads to the mascot meaning something, leads to the student, pro shop and the t-shirts and all that stuff and school pride, and that builds the school pride, and the more school pride you have, the more alumni donors you have giving money back in, which is a very American thing. They talked about that with Grunwald, which we don't have the clip of, but it doesn't matter. You can look that up on yourself. It was last Wednesday at 5 p.m. On Primetime Sports. But the whole idea of building the brand of a university, I think, is what he's trying to get at, is do we have enough people with the ability to change funding models in Canada who are interested, and not just interested, but strongly devout, passionate about Canadian athletics in order to change funding models and make sure that money gets sent to the correct spots and the ways that we want it to be spent as athletes and people who cover sports. And again, we're the most biased people you can talk to because there's been people screaming off the top of rooftops for years, long before we were ever part of the CIS or even knew what the OUA was. People have been having this conversation saying, if you want to have great development, and it goes back to the development training centers that we talked about, put the funding in, build the places, get the kids developed, and grow your game at home. And until, I think what he's trying to say is if you put that funding in, you develop it, and all the things we've already talked about at the start of this conversation, then you might see a change in the dynamic of Canadian athletics and at the university level. And we're never going to be the NCAA. We always say that. There's nothing that is
and it was
similar
a huge leap that he's like, Carleton in the Final Four. I'm like,
oh, I know.
Yeah.
Well, the 4 teams that were there this year, they're all very familiar opponents. I was just like, wow. In the tournament is where we should aim for.
Well, I think that we might be able to get into the NCAA tournament and possibly win the whole thing.
It's the
Grand Canyon of basketball jumps right there.
I remember a story from the Ottawa Sun. I want to say the Ottawa Sun, but it could have been the Citizen. That talked to a Carleton university official, so not on the athletics side.
The charlatan? They wrote about the OUA Today bracket?
No, it was not them. Unfortunately. And they were like, you can't just join. You can't just dip your toe in the NCAA. You have to commit more than just one team. So it might have to be the women's team too. And that's a whole different thing. Because do you want, what are you doing for women's sport if you're just dumping this team in there because you have to promote your men's team?
Yeah. And again, that goes back to the idea of funding models, right? Because, it's not like Carleton throws all of their money at men's basketball and none at women's basketball.
Yeah, their women's team has regressed a bit, but they 2 or 3 years ago were number one.
There's various sports. We'll use McMaster as the example because we're very familiar with it here. Men's volleyball, amazing, right?
Yeah.
Men's soccer, nationally competitive year after year. Men's football, the last couple of years, 5 years or so, we've cranked it up. We've done really well. It's not as though we're not throwing funding at women's volleyball, women's soccer. There's this gender divide, I think, that we always talk about too, that is people perceive that because schools are spending certain amounts of money on different things, that's directly correlated with their directive and how they're trying to force success into certain teams. Sometimes success just comes.
It's a tough thing to get started too, because as soon as you throw money into it, it starts rolling. You have those sponsors, you have those mom and pop shops that open up. I remember going to Penn State for a volleyball tournament, and you could find like a toilet paper dispenser that has the Penn State logo on it. Like literally every single thing. But it takes
Seems
that
like
initial
something you
pump.
wouldn't want to associate your
I
brand
came,
with.
I
Like
saw-
what you use toilet paper for
Yeah.
is not something I would want someone using my brand
It's like
with.
the pieces of toilet paper that have the logo branded on them.
Yeah.
You ever see
Right.
those? It's
Yeah.
like, I don't want to. That's really stupid. But yeah, no, I get what you're
But
saying
literally
about
every
that.
single thing, yeah.
And everything's brand. I think it just talks a lot about branding.
Yeah,
And
I guess
the
okay.
ability. Yeah,
Yeah, I
'cause
agree with
that's
that
kind of
then.
the conversation. I don't know if we need to play any other clips. I feel like that's the roundup conversation I wanted to
Yeah.
have on Canadian basketball.
Yeah.
That I don't know. I feel like we
My
explored some
plug
good
is this
stuff there.
summer is going to be, if you are interested at all in this conversation, this summer is going to be for,
Or in this country.
for
If
you.
you are not a patriot, then turn off this radio show right now. But if you love Canada, listen to Scott.
No, I just think the Pan Am Games, like, we're going to have our men's and women's teams in Toronto.
Yeah.
And those will be huge. And Wiggins committed to, the Olympic qualifier, not
Yeah.
the Pan Am. But that's huge too, to get something him saying now.
And
that he's going to do the Olympic qualifier is awesome.
We know from the BioSteel All-Canadian game as well, when Kemba Walker was in-house, there was,
Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, who's going to be like a first round
Steve
pick.
Nash was there watching. Like, anytime you have Canada basketball, an official sanctioned event, whatever you want to call it, in the building, there's going to be important people there, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be high level.
And it's going to be crazy
and
weird
it's
if you're Mir Marshall, because you're like, wow, there's
Yeah.
a lot of people here that have a lot of wealth.
Yeah, and I was fortunate too during the BioSteel All-Canadian game where I talked about last week, where I was trying to get my media pass. Once I got my media pass, sat down, Michael Grange from Sportsnet sat next to me for the whole game, and we just talked about Canadian basketball and his idea. And I basically posed the question to him to kind of round up this conversation, because talking about, some of the important people being in the gym. I said, when Steve Nash is here, I said this to Michael Grange, when Steve Nash is here, and there's important people in the building, and it's Canada basketball, and there's no real CIS feeder type system. What does that say about Canada basketball, and how could we possibly get some of these guys to stay home? I said, Mike, if 20% of these rosters from this high school all-star game stayed in the OUA, what do you think would happen to OUA basketball? And he just basically said everything we've said for the last half hour. It would develop and grow, and it would feed off. It would become more attractive. More kids would stay, and it would grow again. It's a self-duplicating system. Mm-hmm. So, anyways, I'm very glad that we got through all of that. Talking a lot about Carleton there, possibly going to the NCAA. I wanted to mention as well, Carleton Ravens rhythm cheer team auditions were last week. They said arrive 10 minutes early, which kind of reminded me of like Mean Girls. Like, if you don't show up 10 minutes early, you're cut immediately. Like, show up 8 minutes before, and they're just like, get out!
You're not ready to cheer.
Yeah, you're not ready at all. I actually tried out once for the Carleton Ravens rhythm cheer team, and this is a sound clip from when I tried out.
Cha-cha-boochie, roll call. My name is Craig. I did drugs once. I am a Spartan. So check me out. So check us out.
One of the best Will Ferrell skits of all time. The roll call. You have to see the visual to understand if you haven't seen it before. But all right, we're going to take the break. When we come back, we will be talking about the East-West rosters, and we'll round up the show here on CFMU 93.3.
After the final ball has flown, and the final catch made, and the last screaming fan has left the stadium, the ball is passed from one team member to the next so the players can sign their names. But of all the names, there is one on that ball that is perhaps the most important. That name is Wilson. Good luck this season.
The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head, and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
John Facenda, NFL Films, The Autumn Wind. How great is that? They just signed Michael Crabtree too.
The music in the background was
it's so NFL
epic.
films.
I know. It's like classic vintage NFL films. There will never be anything like NFL films. John Facenda actually passed away about 6 months ago to the guy that's the voice of that. So that's why it kind of came to mind when I was thinking about doing these East-West rosters, talking a little bit of football. I was like, I'll grab some NFL films music. And then the first thing that came to my mind was that clip, because that's the guy that really cemented what NFL films is all about in a way. So,
before you get into this, did you guys lead off the top by celebrating 420 with everyone, or did you just let that go?
Was that a thing?
That's today.
Oh, goodness me.
See?
Why did that
you didn't even wish people a happy 420. What kind of radio host are you? What kind of campus radio host are you, man?
I'm more interested in the Coronas I'm going to be having in 2 days at the Washington Nationals baseball game against the St. Louis Cardinals in Washington, D.C. than I am about 420.
I think it's legal there. Good segue. I think it is.
No, it's not.
It's Washington
State. It's the District of Columbia, not Washington State.
Whatever. Close enough.
Just Obama in the White House. No.
Hey, man. They play by their own rules out there. Seriously.
That's true. I want to talk a little bit about CIS football. I'm sorry I didn't get any 420 shoutouts in. Happy 420, everybody. If that's a thing that you I'm just not. I have no interest in that whatsoever. So that's okay. I'm sure I bring up things all the time that you have no interest in, so we're even. We got bobbleheads. I wanted to start adding some things to the set here. So they're not actually in the studio. I messaged.
I want to add them to the set. Yeah. And I just didn't.
Yeah. They're sitting about 100 feet away from me down at the CFMU office under the careful watch of Tyler Welch, our community outreach coordinator.
Shout out to Welch.
Who is standing over top of the bobbleheads right now. I texted him to bring them in once we started the show because I forgot, and he hasn't responded. So
maybe he's not in.
I don't know what he's doing, but that's okay.
He's just making sure they're constantly bobbling.
Yeah, just you shall not stop moving. It's like the things that used to go back and forth, the marbles. Go back.
Yes.
He's just sitting, making sure they go. Anyways, I tweeted out a picture of our Tim McAuliffe and Andy Fantuz bobbleheads. The Andy Fantuz one is awesome. It's from when he was at Western, and I think it's perfect. It looks great. It's amazing that they had a bobblehead day like I talked about with that Allison Kenny last week, where more CIS schools should have bobbleheads, but they're so expensive to make.
If you have a bobblehead, all I think of is Shania Twain. Looks like you made it.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, good for you.
Wow, I didn't know what that's referencing.
I thought you were going to say that. Don't impress me much.
That too, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Depends who you are.
All right.
I think it's pretty sweet.
Andy Fantuz and Tim McAuliffe both responded to our tweet of the picture of sending out our bobbleheads, said bobbleheads. Fantuz just said, ha ha ha, awesome, which, thanks, Andy. And, hey, at least he responded. And McAuliffe said, Fantuz may have a couple more catches than I do, but he carries the rock like a loaf of bread. That's the first thing I noticed.
When
I got the Fantuz bobblehead. He's holding the ball like by its top. It's the most awkward, it's the most unnatural way that a person would ever hold a ball. But we'll have those on the set. If you have any ideas of things you want us to put on.
How many Venue Cups did he win?
The OUA Today set? I don't think any. Yeah.
Well?
No. I think he went.
No, I'm just joking.
Did he go with, why, are you like want me to flash rings or something?
No, like I was, that'd be awesome. No, it's just funny, like, carries like a loaf of bread and then it's like, oh, well, you didn't win any venues. It's probably why. Maybe why.
Okay. Yikes. No, he's a good player. He had to try with
He's on the
Tailgats still.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And he got married last summer.
Whoa.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Big time. I threw with him last summer.
And
he
at his wedding.
Throws the rings.
I crashed it.
You throw the rings to the altar from the back.
Andy, I got you. I threw with him 2 days before he got married last summer. And then a bunch of the guys from the Ticats that I was throwing with went and took him for a beer at lunch and said, here's your final beer.
Wow.
They bought him for him, like middle of the day, Rolling Rock at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. They're just like, enjoy it because it's over. It's good knowing you. There was a guy at karaoke at a place I was at a couple weeks ago as well that sang, a Lionel Richie song.
Your fave.
Oh, I know. I can't remember off the top of my head what song it was. It was a very sad song, slow Lionel Richie song, very popular one. I forget the name of it right now, but he sang it and then, he dedicated it to his friend who just got married. It was like, as if his friend was dying kind of thing. Typical, but it was funny. It was very funny. In the middle of the bar, like just ridiculous. We have the Tim McAuliffe bobblehead on the set. Tim McAuliffe is going to become more a part of the show, because we've got all these great clips of him. Ready for this?
Are you kidding me? You know you go to war with these guys each and every day for 5 years.
I wish I had this one for the end of the CIS basketball championship.
The Gigi's fans are stunned in silence.
That has nothing to do with Tim McAuliffe, but I wanted to include it.
Countdown on 30, 20, 10, Touchdown to win it. The snap and hold good. The kick is long enough, but it is wide to the right. They win the game. They have won the game. Breaks the tackle on the 20. It's a pick six for the Mustangs. I'm not sure anyone lost here. We just ran out of time. Special players make special plays on special days.
Awesome. Like, we played John Facenda as one of those voices that people remember from NFL films, and like Tim is the voice of OUA football. Don't get it twisted. He
just got real sassy.
So now we got a McAuliffe bobblehead on the set. Here's my favorite one. Has a bit of a personal connection because Stu Turnbull went to my high school in Kingston, but him hitting game winner against UBC.
They get it in deep to Turnbull. Stu Turnbull for the win. He got it.
That's
a good call.
That's a sick sound clip. That's one of those like NCAA where they use it in the commercials where the sound goes off. And
it sounds, oh, what's his name?
Gus Johnson.
Gus Johnson. Yeah. That's
Stokely down that sideline.
Yeah. It sounds just the same.
That might be my favorite CIS basketball call of all time. Just throwing it out there. East-West football. Should get to it. The East Side is comprised of student athletes representing the schools from the AUS and RACQ conferences, as well as Carleton, Ottawa, Queens, and Toronto. It's very interesting because the rosters are split across the OUA for the East and the West. The West contingent is made up of players from Canada West and the remaining OUA universities. Will Finch and James Fracas of Laurier will lead the West offense at Molson Stadium. Mount Allison's Brandon Lay and Saskatchewan's Drew Burko will be the quarterbacks for the East team. So the West is both OUA quarterbacks represented by Western and Laurier. East prevailed 1912 a year ago in London to claim its fourth win in the past 5 years. The only year that...
wow, that's a dud of a game. Holy.
Yeah. Well, there's been a couple of rough scores in this game, but 34-27 for the East in 2011 was pretty awesome, though. And the one year that the West has won, your boy played and threw 2 picks.
Yes!
Wow.
Austin Kennedy, who we had on last week, was the starting quarterback. He played the first and the third quarter, and I was the closer. I was the second and the fourth. Threw 1 pick in both of those quarters. And now I'm here.
Put that on the highlight reel.
That's best part. Yeah, and it threw them both to the same guy who got drafted by the Calgary Stampeders as safety.
There you go. You made him look good, man. You're benevolent.
French safeties are magnets to balls that I throw.
Yeah.
Montreal guy got me twice. Laval guy got me twice in the, anyways.
Throw it on the highlight reel.
The funnest part about that game, Tyler Crapino was the kicker for both teams. So
why?
Because they didn't have a kicker for the other side.
Respect.
So Crapino was standing on our sideline, the west side, because that was, McMaster was part of that west team.
Yeah.
But he was also required to be a part of the East kicking squad. So he would kick all the field goals for them. At the end of the game, it comes down. Notice the score of that game in 2013. West 18, East 17. We were down 2. I drove, I shouldn't say drove, I threw a screen and everybody did the work. And the ball got down to about the 30-yard line. Crapino goes up, nails the game winner, what we think it is. Great. Then Billy McPhee comes in for the East team, drives his team the length of the field, and Crapino has to try and kick for the win for the East on the team that he just sealed the loss for. Misses the kick wide left and the West wins as time expires.
Did you talk to, like, how much did he want to hit that?
One of the funniest psychological experiments that the CIS
I couldn't
has
imagine
ever created.
being nervous.
Yeah.
Like, if you're on the sideline, you're like, what is he going to do? This is way more fun to watch him have to make this decision.
Tyler gets he's locked in. He's an intense guy. He kind of walked to the sideline after he missed it, and I looked at him just like dying laughing because I couldn't believe that was what the game came down to. And he just kind of shrugged at me. He's like, I did it once. Like, I did 2 minutes ago for you guys. Like, don't expect me to make every single kick.
Oh my God.
And if he's an intense guy, then I think I think it would be different. But you'd be like, I just did that. Why do I care about doing it again?
It's true. After 6 days of practicing and being in London and up and down weather and being in the heat and kicking for both teams, at the end of the week, he was like, listen, I'm mentally exhausted. I already made 1 game winner.
Yeah.
Like I can't make 2 in 30 seconds apart. So, I will list off, we're running out of time here on the show because I rambled like always, but I'll list off the players from the OUA that are going to be a part of the CIS East-West game. Running back, Lucas Gavick from Toronto. Receiver, Doug Corby, who's a stud from Queen's University. Receiver, Levi Noel from Toronto. Offensive lineman, Bobby Thompson from Carleton. Dylan Walmsley from the Queen's Gales is the kicker. Defensive line, Stephen Carty from Carleton. Defensive lineman, Aaron Jervis from Toronto. Defensive lineman, Rashid Timbala from Ottawa. Linebacker, Tanner Kerr from Ottawa. Marc-Antoine Laurent from Ottawa. John Connors from Toronto as well. And John Connors, he's the Terminator.
It's a good name.
Isn't that amazing? There's
Oh,
a guy
man.
that played for the New York Jets in Hard Knocks a couple of years ago named John Connor that was a fullback. Look it up. John Connor, Hard Knocks. You won't be disappointed. He destroys people in the preseason, and Rex Ryan is running up and down the bench.
Love it.
Getting all excited. And then for the West squad, we're going to have Will Finch at quarterback, James Fracas at quarterback from Laurier, Declan Cross and Wayne Moore, fullback running back tandem from McMaster. That'll be fun to watch. I know those guys pretty well. George Johnson from Western, who's a freak of a receiver, used to play basketball as well. Greg Nyhoff, extremely talented receiver from Laurier. Randy Beardy from Windsor. Jamal Campbell, offensive lineman from York. Kyle Fraser Audit from Guelph. Zach Instance from McMaster. Sean Jameson from Western. Taz Martin from Waterloo. That West offense, stacked.
Yeah.
Like those guys you see, fullback, running back, two really good receivers. And these are just the OUA guys.
Finch and Johnson.
Yeah, Finch and Johnson playing together with the help of Wayne Moore running the rock and Declan Cross. Like, that's going to be freakish. Defense for the West team, Rupert Butcher from Western, Donnie Eggeter from Guelph, Paul Kaija from Waterloo, Brandon Corelli from Waterloo, Curtis Newton, Guelph, Anthony Petrucci from Laurier, Frank Renaud from Windsor, Michael Ranowski from York, Austin Crum, Windsor, Tristan Dauphin, Guelph, Josh Small, York. I should mention as well, 34 OUA football players are attending as of right now on the rosters, all the ones I just listed. And go to @FenderGuy69, Mark Fulton, which is the weirdest Twitter address ever. And I hate that I had to include that at the end, but he is, I know. Go to @FenderGuy69.
Come on, Mark.
Mark Fulton. He actually puts out really awesome CFL statistical analysis graphs.
I've seen those.
Yes.
I've seen those.
He's a great follow. Okay?
You're so red
That's
right
why
now.
That's why I brought it up. So he put up one of the percentage of players that are from the OUA that are playing in the CFL right now, because guys from this East-West game usually move on to the CFL evaluation camp and beyond. 22% of the nationals that are in the CFL come from OUA schools right now, which is leading among all of the other conferences. So that is pretty much the end of the East-West talk there. Tweets of the week, fly through them. Amanda, you want to fly through these for me?
Yeah, Mike Daly News 8. Love that handle. It's so funny.
Yeah.
Really
Daily
excited
News.
to coach the Hamilton Ironmen this year. Again, a big step needs to be taken from last year. We have great guys to do it. Love to see guys who are alumni coaching the kids. Queens Gills football season tickets on sale now. Ensure priority seating in revitalized stadium for 2016 link. Make sure that you check out all of your school details so that you do not miss out this season.
Should mention as well really quick, Queens football, Ryan Sheehan moving on to the University of Calgary.
Yep.
Saw that. That's a big deal this week, so.
Okay. Female Coach Network @FemaleCN. Don't let stereotypes stand in your way. A blog by Brenda Willis. She's the head coach at the Queens men's volleyball team, so really cool to see that. Women influence in men's sport. Lakehead Campus Recreation @Lakehead CR. Moksha Yoga Thunder Bay is hosting a free week. Check out the schedule for listing times and class times. Make sure you're doing some prehab before your seasons this year, so you don't have to do rehab once you're done. And the most exciting news of last week, Marshall Tweedo from our OUA handle @OUA Today, currently updating our iTunes podcast library with archives of our past shows so that you can catch up on news and events if you're new. #OUA.
They are all updated, and the audio from this show will be up on iTunes within the next hour. That's how we roll. We get it up as soon as we can on iTunes.
That's how we roll.
And then the video podcast goes up later if you prefer to have a video catch you up as well. Last one for you. Lou Holtz apparently is out at ESPN, and he's a personal favorite of mine because he was so entertaining when he was there. This is why I love Lou Holtz. This is him responding to a question on their panel not long ago.
That we anticipated. They will get to talk a whole lot more at halftime. I promise. Well, I don't get they bring me in cold, but they're counting down 7-6-5.
Woo! I think I know why he wasn't necessarily fit for broadcasting. Great coach, great guy, very entertaining, but this is a new sound clip on our board.
Well, I don't get they bring me in cold.
That's for when we have the Monday morning syndrome and we're not able to put together a sentence. Thank you everybody for listening. We do appreciate it. How to reach out to the show @OUA Today, as we mentioned, @Marsh2Fergs, @Scott1Hasty because Scott one-upped me, and @Weldon Amanda because she doesn't like numbers. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes, the podcast. You guys will be back next Monday.
Sure will.
I'm gonna be on the beach getting a burn.
Sure will.
Thank you everybody for listening. Scott and Amanda, thank you for being here and taking part, and look forward to having you guys running the show next week while I'm running around, okay?
It'll be jokes.
Yeah. Can't wait.
We're going to be running around.
I'm going to be listening live. I'll make sure that the tune in link is tweeted out for people. I'll be tweeting in once every 5 seconds just to make sure that everything's okay.
And we'll be
it's going to be
them.
good things. Relax. I'm going to be
all
excited.
Good things, all
yeah,
good
all
things.
good things. All good things. All right. Thank you everybody for listening. Have a great week.